Welcome to Future Ready Live, where we talk about trends, and issues that impact CPAs, CGMAs, and finance and accounting professionals around the world. Joining me today is Barry Payne, I call him my wingman. He's the Director of External Relations for us in the Americas, where we lead the Future of Finance project. And Barry, we're just back from the Future of Finance. So welcome, and let's start talking about what we saw there.
Absolutely, yeah. Fresh from Orlando last week, Tom. What a wonderful experience. I mean, where do we start? Tell us a bit about the background and how we got to Orlando and the role of our advisory group.
Yeah, that's a great. So the advisory group is a group of about 50 chief financial officers, chief accounting officers, global controllers, major members in leading corporations all over the United States. And they've came together to help us think about what the future of finance is going to look like. And we started this group a little over 3 years ago. This is now our third annual summit, and we had record attendance, 150 people. But that group has been meeting every other month now for these 3 years, talking about the changing role and mandate of the CFO.
And we poll them every time that we meet them, don't we? And I think when we started the summit, well, actually, we originally started it on the Sunday with a very successful women's roundtable chaired by the wonderful Kimberly Ellison-Taylor. But then we went into Monday morning, and you always poll the audience, don't you, as to the key themes? I mean, any surprises?
It is interesting. There's a couple new ones on the thing, but we had anticipated that because of a poll we did late summer with our Future Finance group, and that's what drove our agenda. Like, that group creates the agenda, recommends speakers, you name it. So yeah, it's like for the community, by the community. But here were the top 5 issues that we polled them on the opening day of the summit. It's number 1, acceleration of digital transformation. Number 2, AI and Gen AI. Now, that's certainly new in the number 2 spot. Number 3, the need for new skills, emphasis on new. 4th was finding and retaining talent. That used to be number 1. And maintaining culture in a hybrid work environment. And then we could throw in number 6, which was close by the 5th one, which was managing and leading innovation and growth.
And fortunately, our agenda hit on all of those. Here's evidence, people. Here is the conference pamphlet. Just a shout out, by the way, to Kelly Lorenz and all the conference staff for this. It's just a wonderful thing. And what was really interesting is we had a range of different companies and different leaders represented. We started off, by the way, with the author of this book, Coachability, the Leadership Superpower, by Kevin Weil. But talk a bit about what you gleaned from this, and maybe how we kind of transitioned into the whole world of AI.
Well, he did a great kind of opening around leadership and understanding, getting feedback and being coachable. And literally everyone was kind of glued to his presentation. Then they did an interactive workshop, and the energy just continued from there incredibly throughout the whole conference. But he did an amazing job giving us tips and trends. One of the things I took away from that was he had this thing called the learning zone.
Yeah.
And he really talked about how do you get into your learning zone? Because let's face it, we're in this period of accelerating change and transformation. And we're going to have to all, as we like to say, keep our L greater than C, our rate of learning greater than the rate of change, and in fact, greater than our competition. So he basically reinforced that, gave us some really good exercises and concepts to be able to use that to take home. And then that set up the rest of the conference for people to start taking notes. We had these great worksheets for people to literally take notes in each session that they could take back. And and then we went from there into some of the key digital transformation stories, right? We had Matt Bigley from Verizon. He was a major one. And Eric Hansen from Disney Parks and Entertainment, both of them talking about their major transformation journeys. We also had Michael Levy, a nonprofit, Sound Exchange, which won one of the top innovative organization awards from Fast Company magazine. And so they were all three talking about their digital and finance transformation journeys. And what was interesting, Barry, is even what I call our middle market companies, nonprofits, we even had the World Bank there.
Mm-hmm.
All of them said, this is the same journey. We're all walking the same journey. It might be a little bit of different size and scope, but the core issues and the thematics and even the techniques around digital transformation are very much the same. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I thought that all of the sessions were very scalable up and down depending on the size and the company or the organization that you're working with. And I think the great thing about the way that the summit developed was the sense of community and the vulnerability and the opportunity for people to get together as peers. I think we're very deliberate about that. This is not a talking at you summit. This is a summit where you do the talking and you talk, and most importantly, listen to each other, all with the ability to kind of take away actions that you're going to action from the biggest company right through to some of the key not-for-profits. I want to go back to the Sunday because in this sense of the peer network, for those of you that remember our LinkedIn Live after, well, about a year ago, that was the inaugural formation of the Finance Sisterhood.
Yes.
That actually grew to accept men this year, which was great. If you've been following our LinkedIn posts and feeds. But I'll tell you another really important aspect, the need for new skills and talent. And there were loads of sessions, weren't there, around skills, around looking at talent in a different way. The two that stood out for me was Janice and Alicia, both from incredibly what I would call non-traditional backgrounds, talking about expanding what we call the aperture
Yes.
of the talent base. I think you were in that room as well. I was blown away.
Yeah. Non-traditional talent. And how many times do we overlook it? And the fear was if we use AI to do this, we might have even more bias baked in, right? Because they're going to look for any finance function. It's going to have a bachelor's degree in accounting or finance. So right away, that's limiting that criteria. And certainly you won't have a lot of those non-traditionals. And both of them gave us some really good examples of non-traditional pathways. And then what about Liberty Bank and the apprenticeship program, Barry? You got to talk about that.
Oh my goodness. So Paul Young, who is a founding member of our advisory group, he's kind of got two roles. His official day role is the CFO of Liberty Bank based in Connecticut. His unofficial role is he's called the apprenticeship guy. He's a leading light in the AICPA professional apprenticeship for finance business partners. And Liberty Bank ran a really good session on succession planning and catering for the development needs of all manner of great things. But the one thing that was amazing is this year he invited a professional apprenticeship to join us on stage. This guy is phenomenal. His name's Daryl. He was a Marine. I think he was also a football player. That's American football for those guys that don't come from the US. A running back. And he now works for Liberty Bank. What's great about his LinkedIn profile is the first thing that he's got on his LinkedIn profile is apprentice. Paul said it was such a competitive hire. He really wanted to look at diversity of hires into the finance function, just as you said, Tom. I think he lit the crowd up, did Daryl. It was amazing.
Well, and on top of it, Daryl happens to he was a running back at the U.S. Naval Academy on top of all that. And I think the reason he took that job was because of the apprenticeship program, which is what we found is what draws these people in. And then they had another example, didn't they, Barry, of a bank operations person who wanted to move into the finance group.
Yeah, he's looking at, I think, tellers, because the bank, there's a lot of automation in that sort of front end customer service. They've got a teller. So, this thing has been used to upskill. He calls the upskilling component with incumbent staff the Great Eight, because there's 8 of them. But he wants to look, as all companies want to look at different ways in which they can inspire talent to join the CFO's function. And why not get someone who deals with your customers every day coming into the finance function? I'll tell you another one was a panel discussion by Al D.
Yes.
And I very much recommend everyone follow Al D on LinkedIn. He's fantastic. Generations in the workplace, from Diamond, she's just joined Verizon on their finance leadership development program, up to John Regan, who's a seasoned CFO with the Swiss Re Corporation. Incredibly insightful, that session. I think that got people to think a lot.
And
you talk about some of the emerging themes as well, Tom, that we've covered.
Yeah, I mean, we literally covered the gamut from board service, how to be effective in a board setting. We also covered ESG, of course, right? We had Christy Wright from Southwire cover an ESG session. We also ended up with a talent management and leadership with LBGTQIA plus, led by Greg Fine, an association executive. And I mean, it was just phenomenal. But we got to cover Gen AI, right? Number 2 issue. And we were fortunate to have the Gartner Group kind of help lead us there. Marco Horvat, which is one of the key research analysts at Gartner, and a good friend of ours now, been on this Future Ready Live show several times. Him and his partner, Alexander Bant. Alex couldn't make it, but he talked about this idea of tech-enabled finance organizations. And in fact, what we heard from the group was that the CFO is often the leader of Gen AI in their organizations. That was really not what I expected from that standpoint, but extremely good to hear. The other part is we did a poll, of course, in that group. And what we found is that the average time that the finance people are spending in ChatGPT, you want to guess what it was, the biggest one?
You're going to surprise me and stun me.
Used only once or twice, 33%. Then we went to the next one was haven't tried it yet, so that's over 50%. And then actually we did have a few that said more than 2 hours a week, 11%. The average got in there between maybe 20 minutes would be the other one that showed up. So anyhow, we have a lot to do. So that was followed by Don Tomoff and Glenn Hopper, both recently recognized by Data Rails as key thought leaders. And they led a whole practical session on ChatGPT for finance people, including like how to automate Excel and Google Sheets and really use ChatGPT to do all kinds of personal productivity things from that standpoint.
Can I throw up a piece of paper?
Of course you can. I
don't know whether you guys can see this. Now, don't worry, I'll talk through it. But we had this professional illustrator. Oh, was she amazing?
Catherine.
Oh, and after each session, she was able to draw basically the insights into, well, actually, on site, it was a much bigger bit of paper. And a lot of these you'll see on LinkedIn, but I want to focus on this as we sort of, get to the end of our chat, because what we did at the very end is we invited an amazing gentleman called John Scott Turco to really help us think about the actions that we want to take back. So imagine that there was an action sheet after each session. For me, I wrote a post about this, 3 or 4 days ago with an empty conference room that 48 hours before it was the hive of energy, of endeavor, of vulnerability, of collaboration. And now it was an empty room. And the idea is that it's a bit of a metaphor, but how we go back to our normal lives is we kind of forget about everything and it just gets tucked away. Well, I think there was a genuine commitment in that room for action. He posed a really amazing exercise where he volunteered, or people volunteered, to go up on stage. And it was kind of, well, what do you think about remote working 100%? And there's a bunch of people that said no, and there's a bunch of people that said yes. What he did is he got people to flip their arguments. So the person that was in favor of 100% remote actually had to argue for not 100% remote. And it was so interesting to see. It was just about flipping people's perspectives. this is a fantastic question that really opened up my mind. What actions would you take if you knew you couldn't fail?
That was my favorite too, Barry. That was amazing, right? And the worksheet that we gave everybody, like literally asked that question. But you're right. And then it's like, how will you solve for those challenges? So like for all of you out there, whatever you're thinking about, right? Start with that frame and say, what actions would you take if you knew you couldn't fail? And then he closed with one of my favorite quotes from Teddy Roosevelt, which is about the man or woman, I would say today, in the arena, right? And that gets to this idea that the credit belongs to the one who's actually in the arena, who strives valiantly, who errs, who falls down and gets back up, but who does actually strive to do the deeds and who spends themselves in a worthy cause. And that's what we mean as leadership, right? Setting a vision and purpose, which was another theme we saw through all those finance organizations doing transformation. But I would encourage all of you to go look up The Arena by Teddy Roosevelt and literally read that to yourself to inspire you with that question you just asked, Barry, from that perspective.
I mean, I'd like to close by saying that I can't think of an environment, a professional environment I've been in that had so much energy, commitment, and collaboration and real friendships for life. But, you know, for all of you out there, this is accessible. Let's talk about what we've got in store for 2024 and how people might, you know, think about getting involved.
Well, let me add one more piece, which is we have to thank all of our sponsors. We had a couple of key sponsors who were helping us with content, being on site to talk to people and share things. Ernst & Young, their whole finance practice in the Americas. LumaQ, which is a technology learning platform. MindBridge, AI auditing, if you will, for corporates. SC&H Group, a consultancy. Workday, and Hyperion. So those 6 sponsors were critical to helping us be successful. Now let's talk about 2024.
Let's talk about 2024. So we're putting the finishing touches to a location of our event in 2024. There'll be a lot more content surrounding our Future of Finance movement. That primarily LinkedIn will be a wonderful tool to get that out there, Tom. But yeah, I just
follow the hashtag. If you go on LinkedIn, put up there in the search engine, put hashtag Future of Finance, all one word. That's one way to do that. You can also follow Barry and I or connect to us on LinkedIn. So Barry Payne and Tom Hood. And then you'll see things that we reshare as the community. But I've never seen such social media activity from finance professionals, Barry. I mean, it was incredible. And the number of selfies, we even had the big moving selfie. Remember that? That was a lot of fun.
I think everyone, this is an important sort of thing about personal brand as well. I think that goes into the vision and getting people to go with you. But Tom, I can't rate this highly enough. I mean, thank you for everyone that was involved in putting this together. But most importantly, thank you very much to our Future of Finance Leadership Advisory Group. And I think, I've got to mention Andrew Harding right at the end of this, our CEO of Management Accounting at the Association, who went up on stage and just said, the future is bright, Tom. So with that, I think we've given people a fair degree of what it felt like at the Future of Finance. Guess what? It's the holiday season.
Wishing everybody a wonderful holiday season and a super happy and healthy new year. And you can follow us the first and third Tuesdays of every month on LinkedIn. And the other part is the hashtag Future Ready Live, all one word. And you'll see our broadcast with lots of great content from that standpoint. So we hope to see you all back soon as we get closer to the end of the year.